everyone, Sim Pilot Spud here, and today we're going to be doing a flight from San Francisco all the way to Los Angeles. Flight time should be about, let's see, I think about 52 minutes of airtime. Departing weather looks like it's going to be nice, and arrival weather is going to be good as well, so should be no problems for either departure or arrival. So let's get back into the cockpit. Alright, let's get everything all set up here. Let's dim this down a bit. Let's get some power to the plane while we get everything all set up. Get the jetway connected. Alright, so let's get our FMC up to speed. Let's see, from San Francisco to LAX, alternate airport is going to be Ontario, so Kilo, Oscar, November, Tango. Our Delta Airlines, 143 for today. Cost index, we are at 8 today. Flight level, we're going to be doing 340 for today. I don't think we need to be too high for this. Okay, everything looks good. Zero fuel weight is 50.2, block fuel 4.3, which matches up with our sim brief plan. Everything looks good here. Performance, we'll come back to that in a second. Flight plan. So we're going to be doing we're going to be doing the stick SID, so we do not need foil, so let's just get rid of that. Don't need this one either. Don't need Youngs, you need to go straight to Burgle. There it is. Let's just check flight plan, make sure everything is the way it should be. So port should take us straight to Burgle. Alright, looks like it's good, and then we're going to be doing the Ermin 2 star, but we'll get that all set up as we're getting closer to LAX. Okay. It's looking good. So let us go back to the RadNav. ILS frequency for runway 24 right. So let's see here. Let's see, ILS 24 right is 108.5, which is correct. We're going to be doing the LAX VOR. It's 113.6. And the Santa Monica VOR is 110.8. Alright, that's looking good. Alright, let's get the APU started. Let's get our flex temp. So let's go back to performance. I'm going to keep the V1 speeds the same because this is pretty accurate. So trans altitude is always going to be 18,000. We're doing a flaps 1 takeoff since runway conditions are pretty good. Alright, just need to flex the temps. Just got to do a couple of calculations. Taking off from San Francisco, runway 01 right. Runway conditions dry, flaps configurations 1, packs always on. Let's see here, let's get the APU started. Turn off external power. Get the baggage ready. Next to temp, our takeoff total weight is 120. Trim 20, 048. Divided by 2.205 gets us our weight in kilograms, so it's going to be 54,444. Let's see, outside temperature for San Francisco, we're looking at 13 degrees Celsius. Okay, so cost index is going to be 54. Or sorry, flex temp 54. Flex temp 54, flaps 1 configuration for takeoff or taking off in 01 right, and we got a crosswind of 300 degrees of 14 knots, so that should be fine because we're going to be taking off and looping around, so that should be fine. Performance is set, innet, everything looks good. Flight number, cost index, cruise altitude 340. Alternate route is Ontario. Flight plan's looking good. I think we are ready to start. Alright, let's see where we're at up here. I think we are ready. Let's check outside. So the ground crew is still loading up the bags, so we can just wait a few minutes. Should be getting a pretty nice looking departure since we're going to be hitting that golden hour California sunset. Hopefully not too much wind on the departure. Seems like it's stacking up pretty well up here. Alright, so we're ready to go. So let's say you can start making sure everything's set up. Our flight director. Set up constraints, VOR. VOR is set. Cruising at flight level 340. Everything's managed. And the altimeter for San Francisco is 30.20. Okay. Beacon lights on, fuel pumps on, ready for pushback. Alright, let's get pushback rolling. Alright, to make sure ground area is cleared for engine start. Looks like we're ready to go. Starting engine 2. Looking good. Stop at the line. Parking brake on. Engine 2 set, engine 1. Good. Flaps 1. Let's do flap 1. Speed brakes armed. Taxi light can come on. Right, turn off. Alright, turn off APU. Engine start to normal. Alright, ready for taxi. We had the fly-by-wire version so I could do a full flight check on this, but seeing as the displays don't actually, it's not that in depth, can't really get a full diagnostic of making sure all the flight controls are working, but the limitation with Xbox, I guess. Nice and busy at SFO. I've never actually been to this airport, but I would actually like to do a little bit more flying, but most airports I've traveled is usually done a lot of flights in the 737-700 from Phoenix to Burbank and vice versa, and also a lot of transatlantic flights from mainly like LA to Dublin and stuff like that. So hopefully once the Euro livery pack from Four Simmers come out, we'll actually be able to do some really nice European flights, which would be nice. Let's go ahead and get our strobe lights on. No cabin chime, but we gotta do what we gotta do. Never flown on Delta. I believe I've only main airlines I've only flown on Southwest, JetBlue, and American, and obviously international flights like British Airways, Aer Lingus, but not Delta, which I've always wanted to fly on. It seems like a pretty fun, well, from what I've heard, pretty good service and not too bad. sure everything else is set for takeoff. It's looking good. Make sure there's no cross traffic. Nothing on that side. Signal clear to move ahead. Landing lights on. Wing lights can come on. That nice golden hour I was mentioning earlier. Alright, stop here at 01 right. Make sure everything's all set before main departure. Altitude set. QNH set. Speed brakes arm. Flaps 1. APU is turned off. Everything looks good. Landing lights are on. Okay. I think we'll do a rolling takeoff. So we're going to be, don't use the ATC. I've noticed the ATC in this isn't really the best at times. It sometimes gives you really bad call outs at the worst times, and it's not very accurate. So I just tend to fly with the RNAVs or whatever the flight plan I'm using. Actually, I think we'll do an N1 check before we actually take off. Speed brakes are auto brake is max. Alright. Engines are stable. Let's go flex. There's that crosswind I was looking at earlier. Knots. Our V1 to our rotate. Oh yeah, pretty strong winds. Look at that, positive brake, you're up. Look at that sunset. Just keep an eye on the flight director. Hand flying it at this point. Just want to get out of this turn, and then once we get up to a nice altitude, set on the autopilot. Let's get up to our managed speed. Nice look at that. I'll try to get a better view once we come around here. I mean, just look at that. So we're doing the Stick 5 SID, which I guess is the most used departure right now at SFO. So using SimBrief, so whatever the main departure is, it pretty much just logs it into the flight pan for me. So basically whatever the real pilots are using right now is what I'm using. Get a nice view of that right here. Look at that. It's all about that golden hour in California. Nice shot of SFO at the bottom. Alright, let's light her up. Alright, so autopilot 1 can come on. Let the plane do its business. Just monitor the engines, monitor our descent into our flight level. Get some more of those views. That's just incredible. About to hit 10,000. Let the plane do the managed speed up to about 320 knots. Our landing lights and everything can come off at this point. No cabin chime, but what can you do? Speed brakes can come off, and auto brakes are off. Everything's looking good. Plane basically just flies itself at this point, just monitoring everything, making sure everything's all good. Just checking the flight plan to see if anything's changed. Looks like we're all good. Nice shot of the airport right over there. Arrival runways usually are 28 left and 28 right, which is the main arrivals for that airport, so coming in over here is always a really nice view. And so of course you get that really nice sunset there. I'd say out of all the routes I've flown, LAX to San Francisco seems to be one of the most straightforward flights you can get on. Really nice views, super simple to fly. not too long either, so you can kind of get in and out. Good for practicing and everything. And also really just fun, you know, flying anywhere. Looking forward to the new livery packs that are going to be coming out, hopefully for Sim Update 8. Hopefully they'll be dropping. If not, it's probably going to be next Thursday at the time of this recording. So that'll be fun. So it'll be fun to fly the EasyJet livery and all those other European flights, or other European airlines. So that'll be fun to fly. Take a break from flying in the US. Even though flying anywhere seems to be pretty good in this sim. Seems to be a little windy, but it's to be expected of flying over these hills. Usually California arrivals and usually takeoffs are pretty bumpy. Once you get past a certain altitude, it tends to level out. I remember flying into Burbank all the time from Phoenix. The plane would just be like a roller coaster, bumping all over the place, coming in over the hills of near, well, I guess Sunland, California. It gets super bumpy up there. Not too bad. I mean, we have almost a tailwind of 20 knots, so hopefully at some point might give us a bit of a push, but now we should be making good time. Let's go ahead and set our barometric pressure to standard since we're above 18,000. And we're going to be flying in the Ermin 2 approach, which is pretty much a standard flight path from San Francisco into Los Angeles, coming in from this here. And it's a really nice view because you come in right over downtown at the Gatto waypoint, so that you come flying right over downtown LA. And I've seen a lot of flights, and it seems like they come in really close to downtown. It looks a bit weird, but it is downtown to LAX is not that far off. So basically, most of them kind of fly in at about here. It wants us to fly this whole approach, but most of the time you just get vectors. Most of the time pilots will just get vectors from ATC just to fly straight into LA once they pass over downtown, if they're flying this approach right here, the Ermin 2 approach, which is this guy right here. Just following the RNAV from Navigraph and basically just get all my waypoints and all the information that I need. So we'll be right around here. We'll be kind of deviating around here, so we'll be flying right over downtown, which is right here. We'll be flying right over so you get a really nice view of downtown LA, and straight into the ILS approach for 24 right. Should be a really nice landing. That beautiful golden hour sunset. That's what they call it, the golden hour sunset. That's what I've heard other people call it. Basically, it's just classic California sunset. Can't get any better than that. Perfect weather. It has been pretty windy up here recently, so I think last week they had a very high winds at LAX, so a lot of planes were being diverted to Ontario, which is pretty uncommon, but the winds were getting up to about 20 knots crosswind, so it was pretty rough. But it seems like now it seems to kind of die down a bit, but I never know. Based on the ATC or the ATIS information I've gotten, it doesn't seem like we're going to be hitting in too much of a, shouldn't be too bad of an arrival. latest METAR report is winds at 230 at 10 knots, which is kind of good because we're going to be, the heading of the runway is 251, so it might give us a bit of a boost in there, but if not, I might get a slight crosswind, but nothing to worry about. Top of descent. Increase my vertical speed a little bit when I reach my top of descent a little faster. Cannot wait for the PMDG 737. More of a Boeing. I prefer to fly Boeing planes, but since this is the only pretty decent default plane in the sim at the moment, I've learned a lot about Airbus and how all the avionics work and how pretty much how it works, and it's been pretty enjoyable. You know, everyone has their preferences. I mean, I know everyone prefers, you know, the Boeing versus Airbus thing, but you know, Airbus has made some pretty good airplanes recently, trying to keep up with Boeing, and I think Boeing is trying to keep up with Airbus now. So I think, I mean, especially with this plane, the A320neo, this thing has become the fastest selling aircraft I believe it's ever made. It came out in 2014. I've never flown the Neo. Most of the planes I've ever been in is the 737-700, and if I've done transatlantic, it's always been in the A330. I've been on a 747 once, and that was an interesting flight, but yeah, I don't think I've ever been on an A320. I think I've been on an A321, which I guess it's almost the same. But I would love to see this plane in person. This, like, you know, simulation or something in the cockpit would be fantastic to learn how to fly this thing. The only thing I don't like about Airbus is that they have the joystick thing. I know most Boeing aircraft and pretty much most aircrafts have a yoke system, but Airbus seems to have the joystick system, which is interesting. I mean, some aviation people don't really like that. They prefer to have a stick, but I mean, I've seen landings, and you know, if Airbus has been doing it for so long and it's been working, might as well keep it. Alright, just checking everything out now. So we should be hitting our top of climb. Sorry, top of climb should be in about 40 nautical miles. I'm just watching my speed. I wanted to drop too low. I've noticed that the managed speed in the Airbus tends to take forever to get to your flight level. I mean, if I had just had it on normal managed mode, I'd be, by the time I hit my flight level, I already have to start my descent. I noticed in the Boeing aircraft you can get up to your top of climb very quickly. So I don't know if it's something to do with the default A320 in this sim, or I mean, I wish we kind of had the fly-by-wire version that the PC has, but gotta make do with what we got. And I think the Sobo has been making pretty good progress with the default. I know when it first came out it was pretty awful, but it seems to fly pretty good now. Beautiful sunsets, can never get over those. Alright, what's our speed at? I don't think I should take off the fasten seatbelt sign just yet. It's still a bit choppy up here. Lower our pitch down a bit to about 1,000 feet. Still check that everything's good in here. descent managed is 240, which is fine. I'll be entering all this stuff once we are actually just starting our descent into LA. I won't worry too much about this. Won't really input the information just yet because the barometric pressure and temperature, winds tend to change pretty quickly. So I will keep an eye on those once we start to get closer. Obviously, descent. I'll get the METAR information from there, decision height, MDA, all that stuff. But in the meantime, looks like we're just kind of cruising at this point. The progress page doesn't work in this for some reason. It's so frustrating sometimes, but I wish SOBO had kind of implemented a little bit more time into working the FMC, because I know I can't like input waypoints to see how far away I am or anything like that, but VORs work, which is nice. You can't input the actual name, I've noticed, so you just have to plug in the frequencies, but it still works. It's not 100% accurate to the real Airbus, but I mean, if we can get as close as we can, that's as best as we can do. And obviously trying to get as, obviously there's the VOR right there, LAX VOR, so obviously that works. Pretty much gonna be doing, well, once we get closer, obviously we'll be doing our ILS approach into the airport. But then I'll be, since we're going to be cutting through over downtown, we're going to miss this whole approach right here. Just basically just cut this in half, swoop right in around, which is what the real airlines do. They don't really have you go around this whole way unless, you know, traffic's really backed up, I'd imagine. But pretty much at that Gatto waypoint, should be crossing in over right in between the Kobe mark, or the ILS approach in there, straight into 24 right, which is the main arrival runway on the north side, and then 25 left is the main arrival runway on the south side. So you'll never get planes coming in and landing over the ocean, unless it's very rare instances, but it does happen every now and then. But we're flying, you know, what's being used mostly right now, so basically I input all that information into the sim brief, and it gives me the exact information that the real pilots are using right now, which is amazing. Just getting that vapor trail in the back. Nice shot of that. About 500 feet vertical speed. Checking to see when we're actually going to start our descent. I think we're going to start descending to the, let's see, what is that? At the Biking Star. I think that's when we'll start, so that's going to be, as long as we're around flight level 200 or 16,000 feet, as long as we're in there, so it should be about, it's right in there, 120 nautical miles away from us, so should be starting our descent probably when it gets to about 60 nautical miles away from us. We'll probably start our descent in there, do a nice managed, well, nice easy descent in there. Also, this is live time and live weather as well, which is really nice to see. Nice shot at the engine right there. Reached our cruising altitude, so we should be just cruising for about another 5 to 10 minutes, I'd say. Looks like we're getting a slight tailwind of 61 knots, which is pretty good for us, but we might be losing that once we start to turn our heading here in a second. But we're still making good time. Flight time estimated was 52 minutes. Obviously our lapse time is 50 minutes, but we've got to take in consideration about 20 minutes or so of actually just taxiing and getting the plane set up, so not doing too bad. Obviously we haven't gotten a headwind, which is nice for us. Go to its managed Mach speed, which is going to be up around here. I think the Mach speed for our cruise is, well, it says 285, but I'm coming to our descent managed, it's going to be 240 knots, which is pretty standard. Let's say this time we can probably turn off the seatbelt sign. A little bit of wind knocking the plane, but it's not too severe. Gotta let people actually walk around a little bit instead of stuck in the seats the entire flight. Looks like we're heading our turn into the, so we just hit Burgle, so now we're going to be heading into our main star here, the RNAV approach, I would imagine. So at the star biking, that is when we'll hit our descent mark, so coming up shortly. So it's once at about 60 nautical miles away from here, I'll start my descent to flight level 200. Managed. More shot of the sunset. Well, it's almost gone, but still nice to look at. Get a shot from the other side. Not too sure where that is in California. I'd like to say Bakersfield, probably. Not too sure. Never actually driven much through that part of California. see Los Angeles right over there. So we're definitely getting close. At this point we're just maintaining our flight level, cruise. Just waiting to see. So we'll be starting our descent to that waypoint right there. And then basically just follow the Ernum. Yes, the Ernum to approach. Basically just follow that straight in. And then like I said, we'll be cutting through over downtown and then using our heading to basically just cut across and line up to the ILS. It's pretty much what most of the real airlines will do. They never really fly the full approach. ATC usually clears them just to vector them in and just guide them in themselves. The weather conditions are good, obviously, but you get some really nice shots. If you've ever flown this approach in real life, you'll probably get a really nice spot right over downtown as you're coming into land, which is really nice. Looks a bit scary because you're how close you get to it, but that's pretty much how close you are to LAX. Monitoring everything. Looks like the plane we're in our Mach speed still. Now it says our top of descent should be right around there, but the top of descent in this doesn't actually always work 100% of the time, so I don't really trust it. So I just trust myself just to look at these waypoints and guess, kind of just figure out when we're actually supposed to start the descent based on the miles, which is looks like we're pretty much going to be starting now. So let's go ahead and turn on fast and seatbelt sign on, and we're going to be cruising down to 20,000. Do at a drop rate of vertical speed set to 1500. Gauge it from there. As I managed it correctly, so everything's looking good. So I'm going to start setting up the approach phase. So get the information from the METAR reports. Let's see, so LAX is so QNH is 30.11. Temperature right now is 16 degrees Celsius. Mag wind is 250 at 5 knots. Whoops. It's not too bad. Should be guiding us in for a nice tailwind, so I'm not too worried about that. Decision height, rule of thumb, just plugging in at 2. But since we're pretty much doing just a clear landing, shouldn't have to worry too much about it. Transition altitude is always going to be 18,000. In Europe, I believe it is 5,000 or 6,000 for the transition altitude, but in America it's always at 18,000. So a good rule of thumb to remember that. And the MDA, let me just pull up the actual approach chart. 424 right. Says the MDA is at 322. Approach phase is set. Configuration 3. Everything's looking good. Okay. And I'm just lining up to this point right here. Let's move a little bit quicker. okay, and then the, let's go back to my star chart. Alright, so we're heading to initial descent of 22, flight level 200, and then I'd say at base we will be at about 10,000, so at about here we'll be at flight level 10,000, which is pretty good. A pretty good indication of how everything's going to go, but everything's looking good so far. For the actual turn approach, we'll be at the Gato point. We'll turn, we'll actually do a heading select, and we'll actually, fly that manual head, well, autopilot heading, obviously. That would be at about, I'd say about 3,000. It wants us to be at 6, but that's going to be too high to capture the ILS at that point. Most actual flights will be at around 2,700 to 3,000 feet, right above downtown, right above this point right there. So it's, downtown's right there. It's a good indication. So basically, as soon as you pass it, just turn and then basically intercept the ILS approach right there, and be stuck right in to LA. See, LAX is right over there. Santa Monica and Venice Beach right there. Ventura Beach should be, I believe, right there. Ventura County. And the Coastal Highway, PCH, is right along there. Not hard to see because of the night, but yeah, pretty much all along there. Malibu would be over there, obviously. Be a really nice approach seeing downtown at night. Well, basically LA at night. To check our descent progress. So I'm about, looks like we're doing good, because we need to be at 20,000 at this point, and then I'm going to be heading at to 10,000 at that point. So we're doing good so far. And once we're below 10,000, we'll gauge the landing system and turn on the lights, landing lights. Get the approach phase set up. Approach phase is already set, which is good, so we have everything plugged in. So we're looking good. VORs are checked in. ILS runway 24 right is in there, but I had to get rid of some waypoints, so it takes out the runway part, but we're still in that 108.50, which is the ILS frequency for runway 24 right. And now we're getting the Santa Monica VOR, and also the LAX VOR. Just gonna slow our descent here just a tad. Oops, there we go. Too much to see right now, but during the day this whole area looks really beautiful. I like flying in the desert landscapes around the west coast, well, I guess southwest. It's always really beautiful. Seeing it in real life too, in the flights that I used to be in, mainly from Burbank to Phoenix, that was some really nice approaches and some beautiful scenery. Usually never think I've ever flown into any weather problems, just turbulent winds coming into Burbank, but that's pretty, normal for that type of topography. It's a lot of hills. You come in flying in over here, straight in over there. We're still getting a nice tailwind, which is good. and I believe the tailwind is going to be helping us push us into there to our runway, which is going to be very helpful for us. Crosswind landings are fun, but they can be challenging depending on the crosswind and how strong the crosswind is. Okay, so we're about 40 miles out. I'd say about 30 nautical miles out from base, so I would say we'll start our descent into 10,000. And QNH, remember, is once we pass 18,000, switch back to our QNH, which is 3.11. Let's turn the brightness down on that. That kind of bugs me in this is that I wish they had modeled the integral lighting to that orange color that the actual Airbus is. So I like this yellow. I know the fly-by-wire mod actually has the correct, modeling and stuff like that, but if they come up with an update or something just to kind of just change the color, just make it a little bit more authentic. It's pretty good representation of the cockpit, but it's just little things. I know a lot of people are hung up on small details, but for the most part, the whole layout is pretty good. I still kind of prefer the layout of Boeing aircraft, though. Kind of like the way that they've all have everything set up, but I think performance-wise, I prefer Airbus, but layout, I prefer Boeing. The only two Boeing aircraft we have is just the 747 and the 787, but the 737 will be really fun once that comes in. Alright, so I'm going to drop down a little bit. Coming into Los Angeles now. I think we're right over Ventura. Yep, so there's Ventura County, so you got Ventura Beach right over there. Couple of the Ventura airports right there. Santa Barbara is further back over there, I believe. I think the wing's blocking it. Or I think that's Santa Barbara. No, Santa Barbara is over there, I think. Really nice view, especially in the day, but instead of doing night flight, since this is real time, real weather, so this is what it looks like right now. 20 nautical miles from where we need to be. Only 6,000 feet to drop. And then let's set our QNH back to 3011. There we go. And then after 10,000, we want to get to this point right about, right at the decel point in Gato, and then we'll do a nice... we're not going to follow the flight path exactly because we're going to be doing that, nice over the downtown approach right in there. And just taking a look at the charts, looks like we're good. So at Simon, drop our speed to about 250. Well, we're actually at 240, so we're doing okay, because at base we need to be at 240 knots, and that's going to be coming up shortly, so we're doing good. And then basically when we get to Cliffy, we need to have our speed drop to about 200. And then it'd be a nice smooth approach right into runway 24 right, and there's LAX right there. And Santa Monica Airport is right there. Alright, we are at 12, and then we need to be at about, let's say, 3,000 at this point right here, so just keep an eye on everything. Let's take a look at our charts, making sure we're on the right path, make sure everything's all lined up. Okay. Do selected speed at this point, just because I don't want it to drop. Still need to be at a certain speed at these points. A little windy in the arrival, but not to worry. Alright, so we are at 10,000 now, and now we need to descend to 3,000 at this point. Let's plug that in. So we'll do descend to 3,000. Let's do it at a nice, let's do 1,500 at this point. And at based, we are at 240, which we currently are at, and then Cliffy, we need to be at 210 knots. So that'll be coming up shortly. There's LAX right in front of us. Good. Let's turn on our landing system. Now we're below 10,000. Let's go ahead and turn on landing lights. Taxi light. Turn that on. Everything else is looking good. Gonna turn. We'll do a low auto brake landing. Spoilers armed. Let's double check. We are in the approach phase right now. And see, we have got the ILS system ready. Just double check. Speed to 210. Says runway 6 left, but that's not the runway that we're actually landing on. There's downtown right there. There we go, 24 right. Once we get to the certain point, I'm going to start the heading mode and then just kind of line up to the ILS approach right here. I'm not going to follow this whole way in. And everything else is looking good. There's LAX right there. I'm telling you, he seems like it's getting really close, but I'm telling you, that's how close these planes get to flying over. Sometimes when I drive around this area, you can see the planes about this height, and being in downtown, you can actually see them flying right over the skyscrapers too. Up. There you go. I believe Hollywood is right here. I think the Griffith Observatory is over there. I think this is Hollywood right here, if I'm not mistaken. ILS is picking up, and we're going to go into our heading mode. Downtown right there. So if we get past this, we're going to turn heading to the right. Nice beautiful shot downtown right there. Let's go ahead and enter our managed speed and start our approach into 24 right. Runway heading is at 251, but we'll intercept the ILS capture in the localizer, so the plane will just guide us in. This is what the actual flight path is. And let's go ahead and start our turn. Let's do a flaps 1. At this point, kind of bring our descent back in. Waiting for the glide slope to capture. We're too far right there. Turn on approach mode. Alright. And we're lining up. Starting our descent. Another shot at downtown right there. Let's go ahead and drop flaps 2.
2,500.
Make sure landing lights on, active. Ground spoiler is armed. Speed brake, auto brake is set. My bad. About 5 nautical miles to deploy landing gear. Let's do flaps 3. Let's go ahead and drop our landing gear. Full flaps. And once we're at about 800 feet, I'll go ahead and do a manual approach. that. Getting a headwind.
1,000.
Not too bad. Alright. Autopilot disengage. I have control. Another good tip is to always eye your line to the runway with this little gauge right here. That's a good indication of how you are to the middle line, center line.
500.
And also take an eye on those poppy lights.
400.
100 above our decision height.
300. 200.
'Bit of a headwind, but not
100.
since they were lining up.
60. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
Versus green. Alright. Not a bad touchdown at all. Speed brakes up, flaps 0. We're going to be using the Echo taxiway to the Terminal 3, which is the main terminal for Delta Airlines at LAX. I believe that is the John Bradley terminal. I think that's what it's called. That's where most of the, I think it was a new construction. That's where most of the international planes actually, I believe that's where the main terminal is for most international flights. American Airlines uses it quite a bit. Alright, let's go ahead and turn off our landing lights. Everything else is all set. Qantas A330, or sorry, my bad, not the 787, my bad. I know that a lot of A380s do actually park at that terminal. Terminal is right there. So you get your Delta terminal, and American Airlines is just across the other side. I believe got the Southwest terminal right down there as well. But this whole site is mainly Delta Airlines. I believe it's Terminal 3. There's 737 Delta right there. I believe we're going to be taxiing into this gate right here. This is gate 32. I don't really use the ATC ground to bring me to gate since I have this add-on installed, because sometimes it will actually bring you into a gate that has one of those planes already there, so that's going to be kind of awkward getting into that. Alright, parking brake set. Let's get the jetway connected. Ground services, jetway connection. Let's get the bag. And power supply. Turn that engines off. External power is back on, fuel pumps off. Fast seatbelt sign can come off. Lights, nav light, strobe set to automatic. Nose light off. Here. This is the default LAX airport. No add-ons or anything, but for the default handcrafted airports, it's actually pretty good for the most part. It's a little sparse in some areas, but for default, no add-on at all, they did a really good job. So it's nice to see, you know, they actually took their time to model it as close as possible. Obviously, it's not going to be 100%. Let's get the baggage service, power supply up as well. And it looks like that is pretty much it. So I think total flight time should have been about, well, according to the flight plan, 52 minutes of flight time. Had to get that beautiful shot of downtown, but that is the correct, well, if you're flying into that arrival at the Ermin 2 approach, that is the main approach that the pilots will use coming in straight over downtown LA. So it's always fun to fly over that. And also just get that beautiful scenery. Is looking good. Turn on flight director, landing system, constraints. Don't need the VORs anymore. Turn those needles off. Smoking. I would say that this is definitely one of my favorite routes to fly, from LAX to San Francisco or San Francisco to LAX. Just how quick it is, super easy to fly. You know, it's good for practicing if you're starting to learn like IFR, you know, procedures and stuff. It's a really good way just to practice. If you can master that, you can pretty much master any flight. Obviously, some airports have trickier approach patterns or approaches or takeoffs, but as long as you follow the star chart or the approach charts to any airport you're flying. I use Navigraph, but it's a monthly subscription, obviously, but it really helps, and I wouldn't even be able to do all these charts. And obviously, SimBrief is another great tool to use to get the actual flight charts or the flight plans to get you in to use the actual approaches and departures that the actual airlines will actually use. So just adds some more of the, I guess, the realism factor to this, but could be better. But for the Xbox version, I try to make it as realistic as possible, given the certain limitations that the Xbox does have without the third-party add-ons. So obviously PC has that, the fly-by-wire, the A320NX mod, which is amazing, so luckily the PC players can have that. But for default A320, we got to make it work with what we got. Obviously with the PMDG 737 that's going to be coming out, that is going to be a real game changer for how, we need more study level aircrafts in this game. I'm still learning things with this airplane. Obviously I'm not 100%, I'm not certified in any way. I just do this for fun because I enjoy it, so I'm always learning new things. So, but it's definitely a great way to learn as much as you can and just enjoy what you're doing. Obviously, with all these limitations, it's definitely doable. As you can see, try to get as much as the realism in this as possible. So, but that is pretty much it. So I'm going to power down the aircraft at this time since we're not going to be using it. So I'll go ahead and turn off. Let's get everything switched off here. And we are shut down. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I should be coming out with a tutorial on how to get the wing views that you see me cycling through here. It's a little bit of a hard explanation to actually get into, but I'll be putting up a video on how to actually get these views. It's definitely a lot easier than it sounds to actually get these things in here, but I'll be coming out with a video shortly on how to get those views to make the sim more enjoyable for sure. Should be coming out hopefully tomorrow. It'll be posted up on my YouTube channel, which is exactly the same as my Twitch name. So if you want to see that, I'll be uploading that shortly as well. But yeah, that was pretty much a standard flight San Francisco to LAX. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I will be live streaming as much as possible. I don't have a schedule yet, but basically I have my Instagram that I notify everyone that I'm going to be up. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you on the next